You learn the rules of being liked long before you learn the rules of being feared. Every classroom, every playground, every office teaches the same dangerous lesson. Be agreeable, be pleasant, be small. But niceness, as you have been taught, is a soft armor that stains and tears under pressure. The world does not reward those who apologize for taking up space. It devours them. There is a less taught truth. Influence is not built out of smiles. It is forged in silence, strategy, and the quiet refusal to be owned. Watch closely. What follows will make your moral map tremble, because power does not respect good intentions. If you want to be untouchable, you must first learn what it costs to be kind, not cruel, not monstrous, calculated, relentless, discerning. This is not a self-help pep talk. It is a manual for survival masquerading as wisdom. Stay with me, or stay small. The choice is yours.
The death of niceness. They praise niceness like a virtue, as if a smile were a shield against consequence. But niceness is a fragile armor in a world that rewards edges. People who choose being liked over being respected learn the cost slowly, then all at once. Niceness renders you legible, predictable, and therefore exploitable. When you are agreeable by default, you trade leverage for approval. You become an easy ledger entry in someone else's account of favors owed and favors withheld. Machiavelli catalogued the dynamics we pretend not to see. Softness invites pressure. Avoidance of discomfort invites others to make your hard choices for you. A leader terrified of being disliked will delay the bold move until the opportunity is taken. A person who hoards agreeability will find their ideas repackaged by those who can say no. Niceness becomes social camouflage that highlights where you can be taken. This is not a case for cruelty. It is a case for discipline. Replace reflexive niceness with deliberate generosity. Make kindness a currency you spend, not your default balance. Learn to say no in an efficient economy. Brief, clean, without apology. Use absence to increase value. Allow your presence to be a premium. When you stop being the perennial open tab, you stop being the obvious target. Boundaries are architecture, not aggression. Set them early, set them clearly, and enforce them with the steady patience of a ledger keeper. Record favors, expect reciprocity, and refuse the habit of unpaid emotional labor. If someone cannot respect your limits, view that as revealing rather than a personal failure. This discernment is the core of real influence. Being untouchable is not about cruelty. It's about choosing when to engage and when to withdraw. The death of reflexive niceness is the birth of strategic influence. Practice it. Protect it. Let the map of your life be read.
Worn by the shape of your refusal, not by the weight of your apologies. Respect follows those who refuse to yield. If this disturbed something comfortable inside you, good. Subscribe to Curiosity to Wisdom for more hard truths. Like if you want strategies that do not flatter, but transform. Hit the bell. Become disciplined about your influence. Share if you know someone still trading respect for approval. Stay curious, then transform. The power of emotional contagion. Emotions are not private, they are viruses. You feel what others feel because people are wired to mirror, to match, to sync. The neural echo of social life. When you enter a room with lightness, others relax. When you carry a tremor, fear will spread like low tide into the behavior of everyone nearby. To command a room, you must master the atmosphere you bring. Influence begins with the emotional climate you set. This is not manipulation for its own sake. It is situational mastery. Notice the leader who speaks slowly in panic, and watch how their calm steadies the crowd. Sense the person who smiles at the wrong moment, and watch trust crumble. Emotional asymmetry, the deliberate mismatch between your inner state and the group's pulse, is an advanced technique of dominance. When others escalate, you contract. When others despair, you listen with an unruffled face. The mismatch creates a hinge. People will lean into the steadiness you offer. Practice the quiet calibration of affect. Slow your breathing when panic rises around you. Introduce a single steady phrase, a deliberate pause, a neutral gesture, and give the room something to anchor on. Use mirroring sparingly and with purpose. Match tone to build rapport, then pull away to establish distinction. Tone is the currency of authority. The same sentence said with clipped precision lands differently than when said in breathless apology. Emotional weaponry is not about domination without ethics. Use it to create safety, to neutralize escalation, to command attention. Beware the temptations. Weaponized affect can numb empathy and erode your integrity. The aim is not to deceive your humanity. It is to steer social currents so that they serve your purpose. Master the weather of a room, and you will steer its outcomes with less force and more grace. Remember, people mirror what you are, not what you say. Become the mood you want to see. Hold it steady. Watch how influence follows the calm like shadow to light. Exposing the moral vacuum. Power is morally ambiguous because systems that endure depend on outcomes, not promises. The comfortable narrative insists that good motives produce good results. Reality often shows that good motives without strategy produce ruins. To operate in the arena of influence, you must learn to see morality as a tool rather than a compass. That sentence will make some readers uneasy. Let it. Unease is the first sign of growth. This orientation does not require you to become a monster. It requires clarity of purpose. When morality becomes an instrument, you can wield it. Deploy righteous language when it suits your agenda, and set it aside when it blinds you to the calculus of consequence. History is full of figures praised for virtue who failed because virtue alone did not secure influence. Power is an amoral arena. Virtue is a performance if it is not allied with strategy. Understand the distinction between conscience and convenience. Conscience is an inner ledger. Convenience is the external pressure that tempts you to trade long-term leverage for short-term comfort. A strategist knows when to tolerate cognitive dissonance and when to resolve it by adjusting the moral posture, not the mission. This is why great actors of influence sometimes speak in contradictions, because their aim is coherent even when the rhetoric is messy. The most effective leaders use moral language to create alignments, to mobilize, to justify risk. They also know when moral framing is a liability and when to shift to other languages of power, scarcity, competence, expertise. Acting without apology does not mean living without ethics. Rather, it means refusing to let ethical theater substitute for strategic work. A moral vacuum is not immorality. It is the sober space where choices are made with eyes open. If you desire to be untouchable, cultivate moral literacy. Enables it to read moral climates and deploy moral frames as instruments. Learn to hold your line without moral theater. The true test of power is not how loudly you proclaim your goodness, but how effectively you shape outcomes responsibly, ruthlessly, and with intention. The invisible debt. Every interaction leaves a ledger. A favor given creates a psychological credit. A kindness unpaid becomes an obligation that shapes future behavior. This invisible accounting is the foundation of leverage. Most people mismanage it because they operate on feeling rather than on records. They are generous in the moment and bankrupt in the aftermath. If you want influence, learn the art of deliberate exchange. Strategic reciprocity is not transactional cynicism. It is an ethical economy. When you give, do so with an explicit horizon. Seed favors in ways that create options, not dependencies. Small, well-timed concessions buy goodwill. Indiscriminate largesse bankrupts authority. Notice how the person who remembers small debts is never surprised by returns. Their network becomes predictable and reliable. Memory is a power tool. Refuse the comfortable myth that true generosity is anonymous and unaccountable. Anonymous charity has its place, but in social power dynamics visible, selective gratitude is often the lever. Public favors can convert obligation into reputation. When someone knows you have invested in them, they are less likely to cut you out of the future. The psychology of indebtedness is a force. Learn to map it. Warning: unmeasured kindness creates chains. Give without accounting, and you will be called upon at the worst possible moments. The person who never says no will find themselves at the center of everyone's emergency. Learn to refuse gracefully and to invoice emotionally. That is, make reciprocity legible. A ledger can be soft, a text, a reminder, a small returned favor. The point is to keep records in human form. Mastery of obligation legitimizes influence. When agreements are clear, relationships are resilient. When favors are anonymous and endless, relationships are brittle. Build systems of exchange that protect your attention and grow your options. The invisible debt, once mapped and managed, becomes the scaffolding of your untouchability. Remember to balance leverage with integrity. Wielding obligation carelessly becomes coercion, and coercion burns bridges permanently. Use indebtedness to create mutual accountability, not permanent servitude. When people owe you, make sure they keep their dignity as they pay back. Influence that shames is brittle. Manage obligations with a human hand, and you will build a durable network. Preemptive fear. Fear is not only what is produced in the moment of conflict, it can be a prophylactic. Preemptive fear is the art of creating hesitation before opposition breathes. It is not terror or cruelty. It is the proportionate use of uncertainty and restraint so that potential challengers pause. A chess player who signals readiness without rushing forces the opponent to second guess. The space you create between threat and action is where control lives. To craft preemptive fear, cultivate ambiguity and the capacity for decisive inaction. Do not telegraph desperation. Silence is a threat when it signals that you are not moved by normal triggers. A controlled absence can suggest resources, alliances, or patience the other side does not want to test. The aim is to create a cost to aggression that exists before conflict, raising the price of bad moves for others. Use restraint like a blade, visible but unflinching. Threats that are capricious destroy trust. Threats that are patterned and purposeful are effective. Let your reluctance be legible, not weak, but pregnant with meaning. When people must account for the unknown consequences of their actions, caution replaces impulse. Preemptive fear is mental leverage, reducing the need for frontal force. This method also relies on reputation. Those who have shown the ability to act with cold patience are believed when they threaten. If you always react immediately, your threats are cheap. If you create intentional delay, your silence becomes heavy. Build a character of measured response, and others will prepay for your restraint by avoiding confrontation altogether. Warning: do not confuse preemptive fear with mean-spirited intimidation. The objective is hesitation, not humiliation. Use this tool to carve breathing room, not to erode humanity. In the architecture of control, anticipation is often stronger than action. Ape the expectations of others and you will find fewer battles fought at all. Add rituals that reinforce your pattern, a consistent pause before replying to demands, a formalized decision window, the deliberate deferral to "let me consider." These small acts signal restraint. Over time, your measured cadence becomes a cost others internalize, making rash attacks less likely. Preemptive fear is quiet. Its power is in what it prevents. The death of approval. Approval is an appetite that can eat you alive. When you live for the nods of strangers, you outsource your compass to crowds who will never carry your burdens. Approval addiction binds you to the rhythms of other people's moods. It shrinks ambition into palatable increments. The person who seeks validation forfeits the luxury of unpredictability, which is the soil of strategic advantage. To die to approval, first cultivate appetite awareness. Notice when you change your posture to fit an imagined audience. Track the small transactions of image management, the curated post, the softened claim, the joke at your own expense that was never funny. Each concession erodes a small piece of autonomy. Reclaim those pieces by practicing decisions that do not require applause, willingness to be unexplained, to act in ways that do not come with instant likes. Independence is not isolation. The goal is not to sever social ties, but to recalibrate their gravitational pull. Build internal criteria for success that do not map to the signals of others. Measure your days against your ledger, not their reactions. When validation is no longer your thermostat, your behavior becomes internally regulated and therefore harder to predict, harder to manipulate. Power grows in spaces where others cannot buy your consent. The move from follower to architect requires a tolerance for discomfort, the discomfort of being misread, disliked, or ignored. If you want influence, practice dissent in small, consistent ways. Say what must be said even when it undercuts your popularity. Hold alignment decisions privately, and reveal them only when they serve your map, not someone else's mood. Start with small uncouplings, a withheld compliment, a decision kept private. Each refusal builds muscle. Over time, validation weakens and sovereignty grows. The death of approval is liberating because it returns your authority to you. No longer are you a mirror, you are a lens that focuses your intentions. From that place, you create, decide, and act with an independence that becomes magnetic to those who respect substance over applause. The invisible architect, power that endures, is architected, not improvised. The untouchable individual builds systems and routines that outlast moods and impulses. Influence without structure is ephemeral. Structure converts influence into institution. Design the scaffolding of your life, routines that conserve attention, relationships that compound trust, commitments that accumulate authority. Treat your environment as a project and your presence as an instrument. Begin with time. Schedule scarcity like a budget line item. Protect blocks of time as if they were high-yield assets. When you institutionalize availability, you become predictable in the only way that matters, reliably valuable. Next, build relational protocols. Have habits for starting and ending collaborations, templates for favors, and rituals for acknowledging contributions. These small formalities convert goodwill into durable alliances. Systems also include mental models. Curate a set of frameworks that you use to interpret information, risk heuristics, trust filters, and decision thresholds. Teach yourself to categorize opportunities, not by excitement, but by leverage and retreat cost. Keep a no list as religiously as you keep a to-do list. Institutions require boundaries. Individuals with systems act like institutions in miniature. Financial architecture matters. Diversify your sources of power so you are not hostage to a single network or income stream. Social architecture matters. Design a core set of allies, a periphery of acquaintances, and a set of unknowns who remain potential resources. Reputation architecture matters. Write, speak, and act in ways that compound credibility over time. Small investments in systems compound. They are the quiet engines of leverage. Finally, practice patience. Architecture demands maintenance. Check your systems regularly. Remove friction, add clarity, and power use. In relationships that drain rather than feed the project, add rituals that reinforce identity, a weekly review, an annual audit of alliances, deliberate learning cycles, so the system stays alive. The invisible architect does not announce the foundations. They build them. When storms come, their work holds. Influence built like this becomes less about personal heroics and more about reliable design, the signature of someone truly untouchable.
Practical rituals and exercises. Theory without practice is vanity. If you intend to shift from agreeable to architect, you need daily rituals that train new reflexes. Start with the silence exercise. For 1 hour each day, remove external input. No messages, no news, no social feeds. Learn to sit with discomfort. This trains the muscle of presence and reduces reactivity. Next, open a leverage ledger, a simple notebook where every favor, promise, and concession is noted. Track dates, expectations, and any reciprocity. Review it weekly. It becomes your social CRM. Practice emotional calibration with micro-interventions. In a conversation that escalates, slow your breath for 5 seconds before responding. That pause changes the physiology of the exchange and often redirects the outcome. Use mirroring sparingly. Match someone's tempo briefly to build rapport. Then pivot your rhythm to regain distinction. These are not tricks, they are small habit changes that create larger social shifts. Boundary scripting is crucial. Prepare concise phrases for common incursions. "I can't take that on right now. I'll consider it and get back to you." Or, "My time is committed today." Deliver these lines without apology. Rehearse them until they sound natural. Physical rituals help. A deliberate hand gesture to close a meeting, standing before ending a call, a specific tone you use to signal importance. These cues teach others how to treat you. Financially, practice scarcity. Set 1 monthly limit on discretionary favors. Socially, practice selective absence. Turn down 1 invitation monthly that serves no strategic purpose. Psychologically, write a short manifesto of what you will not ask permission for. Post it privately and revisit it monthly. Collect small, repeatable victories. A day without performative updates. A refusal delivered cleanly. A favor that was reciprocated. These
rituals are not manipulative recipes. They are training wheels for a new identity. The more you practice them, the faster you internalize the architecture of power. Start small, be consistent, and measure your progress in the durability of your decisions. Final synthesis. We began by killing the reflex of niceness so we could reclaim agency. Then we learned to command atmospheres by mastering emotional contagion. We exposed the moral vacuum to use ethics as instrument rather than theater. We mapped the invisible debt so favors become scaffolding instead of shackles. We practiced preemptive fear, using restraint and ambiguity to make conflict costly. We died to approval so sovereignty could rise. We designed architecture and rituals to make influence durable. Each lesson is a lever. Together they form a machine. Power, in this view, is not a neat badge to be pinned on the lapel of someone born pristine. It is a series of habits, a ledger, a set of boundaries, and an internal climate that others unconsciously respond to. The untouchable do not operate from cruelty. They operate from clarity. Clarity about ends, clarity about limits, and clarity about the cost others must pay to move them. That clarity is not rigid dogma. It is a living orientation that adapts while keeping its core. Your task is practical. Implement the rituals, measure the ledger, practice silence, and design your systems. Your task is also philosophical. Decide what kind of power you want. Will you be an architect who builds to sustain, or a gladiator who performs for applause? Power for its own sake decays. Power with purpose compounds. If you walk away with one instruction, let it be this: refuse the easy currency of being liked at the expense of being significant. Small kindnesses are lovely, but let them be chosen, not default. Let your generosity be an asset, not an unpaid debt. The world is not designed to give you what you deserve. It will give you what you structure to receive. Now, decide. Become intentional. The map is given. The terrain is yours to shape. When you craft your life by design, you become not merely influential. You become untouchable in the only way that lasts, by being indispensable to the logic of your own existence.